In her time, Mary E. Hart was a well-known newspaper writer and promoter of Alaska. From covering the 1900 Nome Gold Rush for two California newspapers to her role in the women's suffrage movement and California women's clubs, the founding of over 30 women's clubs in Alaska, and as a guest lecturer on the SS Spokane for the Pacific Coast Steamship Company on their Alaska route, her career spanned nearly 3 decades from the 1890s through her death in 1921. Her greatest historical contribution was the management of exhibits for California at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair and for Alaska at the 1904 Louisiana Purchase Exposition in St. Louis, the 1909 Alaska Yukon Pacific Exposition in Seattle, and the 1915 Panama Pacific International Exposition in San Francisco. Despite Hart's incredible contributions, her story has yet to be told. Little is known about Hart's early life. She was born in Virginia in 1861, and her family would settle in Missouri. She finished high school in California, Missouri, and taught school for a year before marrying Frank Hickox Hart in 1879. The expansion of postal services in Southern California in the boom of the 1880s meant that Frank Hart's employment with the USPS would provide an opportunity for the Harts to relocate. While living in Southern California, Hart was a member of the Pacific Coast Women's Press Association and met many women across literary circles, including Phoebe Apperson Hearst and Ina Coolbrith, the first poet laureate of California. Mary became part of two historical and scientific societies in Southern California, which led her to be selected as the custodian of their displays for the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. Her endeavors for women's work and education displays for the 1904 and 1909 expositions were well documented by the exchange of letters between Mary and the over 30 women's auxiliaries set up to provide the displays, including the only Native group in Metlakatla, Alaska. By 1905, Mary was also contributing and featured in the Impress, the magazine of the PCWPA, and the Club Woman magazine of the General Federation of Women's Clubs. By 1906, she was a guest lecturer for the Pacific Coast Steamship Company. She was also writing for the San Francisco Call, the Los Angeles Herald, and other newspapers. She was invited to present a speech at Journalism Week at the University of Missouri in 1914 and inducted as an honorary member of a local journalism society. In 1915, Mary would represent Alaska one more time at the Panama Pacific International Exposition in San Francisco at a special exhibit within the Pacific Coast Steamship Company's exhibit in the Transportation Building. She was elected as an honorary member of the PPIE Board of Lady Managers as a San Francisco representative. In 1918, Mary survived the Spanish flu, but her health was steadily declining and possibly her eyesight was beginning to fail. After surgery in 1920, she went to Los Angeles for a second consultation and another surgery. While she survived many natural disasters and illnesses in her lifetime, including the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and the 1911 sinking of the SS Spokane, she could not defeat liver cancer. On March 9, 1921, Mary E. Hart took her own life by turning on gas jets without lighting them while staying with a friend in Los Angeles. This research is important because of Mary's impact on the journalism world and for world expositions. While Mary's impact on the suffragette and temperance movements is minimal and even difficult to gauge, her impact and contribution to the journalism world and to 4 world expositions is measurable. The California Historical and Scientific Expositions in 1893 may have been less informative without her participation in both organizations, and the PPIE Alaska exhibit as part of the PCSC company display may not have existed without her employment. Her tireless efforts at the 1904 and 1909 expositions would bring Alaska to millions who might not otherwise be able to visit the territory. Because Mary's personal records were most likely lost in several disasters, personal letters, contracts, and book manuscripts are not available. Preliminary information on life activities came from historical newspapers and family information. The research process in 2022 gave insight into her work at the 1904, 1909, and 1915 World Expositions through research at Nara College Park and the California State Library, as well as the Bancroft Library in Berkeley, California, and the University of Washington and Mo High in Seattle. Other potential information sources discovered during the 2022 research process will need to be investigated in the future. The Missouri Historical Society in St. Louis was undergoing renovation, and the collection is not available until 2023. The Beneke Library at Yale holds the personal records of Yale alumnus and Alaska Territorial Governor John G. Brady, a contemporary of Mary E. Hart. Another contemporary, Sheldon Jackson, houses collections at the Presbyterian Church Historical Society in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Since Nome was a main transportation hub for reindeer and Lapland herders, as well as reindeer coming into Western Alaska, Mary Hart had intimate knowledge of the reindeer trade in the interior, thanks to her friendship with Mary Sinrock, a local Inupiat woman. There is still research to be conducted on Mary E. Hart's life.